We're going to be covering the topic of rethinking that the employees are the most important part of an organization. And while we hear executives say this all the time, and I do believe that employees are an invaluable part of an organization, to use the term that you believe that employees are the most important part of an organization can lead you down false truths or false paths. Now, what I want you to do during this one section is just to be rethinking, to open your mind to a completely new paradigm and see how this works for you. Let's take, for example, a situation. Let's say you're sitting in a minivan. You're on a racetrack, you got your helmet on, and you're going to be racing in a race to the competitor who's right next to you, a guy by the name of Mario Andretti. And in the history of racing, he is one of the best all-time racers of all time. And he's sitting in there in his Formula One racing car, revving that sucker up. Well, let me ask you, who's going to win? Well, of course, Mario. Mario's got the skill, the talent, the background. He's been a winner. I mean, this guy knows how to race. But let's pan back just for a second and look to see that you've got this full, complete minivan, and Mario has this Formula One vehicle, no tires. Did the formula change for you for just a second? You're going, of course he's not going to, he doesn't have the tires. Well, that is in essence that the person is not the most important part of the situation. In this case, he needed tires to be able to compete. Well, we can do this across all platforms. If you start to think about the entire picture, while people are extremely important, they add so much value, they might not be the most important part. Let me give you another example. Let's take a look at Boeing. Boeing was redesigning their aircrafts, and one of the things they realized is that people were hitting the call button very frequently. The flight attendants would go up, they'd service somebody, or they'd say, no, sorry, I just hit the wrong button. So what they did is they moved the button away from the button that turned on the lights. And in doing so, they cut down on a dramatic amount of times, or a drastic amount of times, that these people had to show up, turn off the button, and say, I apologize. Let's think about a hairstylist. If a hairstylist has very dull scissors, as compared to one with very sharp scissors, I don't care how good that hairstylist is, the hair won't cut as clean and sharp. If we change the systems and structure, we improve their performance. And let me give you another one. Camera crew, we're sitting here again. We take the cameras away from a camera crew, how productive they will be. The people are still talented and they do contribute a lot, but maybe they're not the most important part. So if you believe that the people are the most important part, and that's where you need to focus your time, you're probably going to have a tendency to use a phrase that I started a long time ago, I don't know why, I call it hugging and kissing. That's when you go up to your employee and say, you're doing a good job, keep on working at it, you'll solve this, you'll get there. I know a lot of executives who, when they have a challenge with an employee, the first thing they do is say, how do we motivate them? How do we inspire them? How do we get them to understand their job? And I can, several times I'll say, no, that's not where they're having the challenge. The reason they're doing those behavioral things is because they're missing this side of the equation. So what if you were to change the formula a little bit? The next time you had a challenge, what you would do is instead of looking at systems, instead of looking at the people, you step back a minute and said, let's look at the systems and structure. The mechanisms they use to work, the tools that they have to work. In the book Paid to Think, we use the term GPP, Goldsmith Productivity Principle. I didn't name it. I spoke at an event. I was talking about systems and structure, and someone said the GPP. I had no clue what they were talking about. A few minutes later, I said, what is the GPP? The Goldsmith Productivity Principle. It is focusing first on the systems and structure and then moving over. Now, let me give you another example of how this can impact decision making. I was working with a government office, a very large government agency, and one of the things that they were doing is they hired me and many others to kind of inspire and move and develop people in a certain way so that they would do a better job. Yet I do interviews, and I'm very unique in this approach. I don't just do a group interview. I do one-on-one interviews with individuals, asking them very serious questions, all confidential. And every time I was talking to key leadership people as well as middle management, they would all say something to the effect of, we have a time bomb on our desk. A ticking time bomb. What is this bomb? He says, well, our computers go down all the time, up to 2 to 3 hours a day. And we're still responsible to deliver the same amount of results, no matter if it's down for 3 hours or not. So we have to push our people, we're challenged in multiple dimensions. So why don't we change this a little bit? Why don't they start scavenging for parts? If we get the computers up and running, the systems and structure, then we can deal with the behavioral side of the equation. In India, they're addressing this exact same challenge. H.R. Hatwar, who is the head of the meteorology department there, who's responsible for determining weather. And in India, if you're familiar with the country of India in terms of population, 600 million people who are responsible for, who are in agriculture. I mean, that's how they have their subsistence. That's how they live. And if you consider they have monsoons and rainstorms and droughts and all sorts of things, being able to accurately predict the future of a storm is a huge indicator of how well people are going to perform. Actually, it's the 600 million people are 18% of the GDP. To actually make it even more impactful, a weather prediction off could be 2 to 3% of the GDP. It could actually change the entire makeup of the year for the country. And they decided to make a very good strategic move because they noticed that HR was using 1950s technology, even in the 2000s, to be able to predict weather. What they would do is he would use charts and graphs and maps. And they allocated $620 million to the installation of 1,000 weather stations, automated weather stations, and over 2,000 precipitation machines all throughout India. And what they're looking to do is capture this in real time and give them better tools to be able to accurately predict the future. Now, they're not changing HR, they're not changing their team. What they're doing is changing the systems and structure. Now, I know this is challenging. In our forums, we talk about this. I know when I'm talking to individuals, it's very difficult for them to get their mind around the fact that this could be so powerful. And just this morning, I was reading from an individual who was in Mexico someplace on holiday, on vacation, and she was sitting at the beach reading this, and she said she started to look around at the entire hotel. And she said, I started to see how productive could these employees be if there was no hotel? How productive could they be if they didn't have the accounting systems? How productive could they be if they didn't have the glasses? Well, glasses and hotels and order systems and beds and sheets and pools are all part of the systems and structure. So the next time you run into a situation and you're trying to figure out how to create opportunities, don't look to the people first. That's part of it. We'll go over it in Paid to Think. What I want you to start thinking about is, what are the systems and structure? Have the people around you work on the systems and structure. And I'm going to guarantee you, you're going to find unbelievable opportunities in places you've never seen before. So that's rethinking that employees are the most important part of your organization. A real challenge to get your mind around, but an opportunity not worth missing.